What if the silence that surrounds you is not a void, but a mirror, one that reflects not your image, but your soul stripped of noise, stripped of distraction, stripped of performance? What if it is an absence but presence, not a hollow chamber, but a room where everything you've ignored sits waiting for you to finally listen? Most people think silence is peace, but silence is rarely peaceful at first. It's confrontational. It demands something from you that very few things ever do: honesty. Not the kind you perform in conversations or type in texts, but the raw inner truth you keep hidden even from yourself. Because when the music fades, when the screens go dark, and when no one is watching, you're left alone with the only person who never stops talking: your mind. And you don't like what it says. Blaise Pascal once said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." That wasn't a poetic exaggeration. It was a warning, a prophecy, really, because now we live in the noisiest time in all of human history, and somehow we've never felt more disconnected. We're overfed with information and starving for meaning. We've mistaken stimulation for significance. You reach for your phone without thinking. You open app after app like pulling levers on a slot machine, hoping for a moment of something, anything, that will distract you from the ache, that nameless tension behind your eyes, that itch in your chest, that sense that something important is missing, but you're too busy to figure out what it is. You say you're tired, but it's not physical. It's existential. You're not bored. You're spiritually undernourished. The world has conditioned you to believe that stillness is laziness and that silence is unproductive. But think of it. How can you know what you think, what you truly believe, if you're always consuming someone else's thoughts? Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and a philosopher in solitude, wrote that nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. And yet we treat our own inner world like a haunted house. We don't go in, we avoid it, we laugh it off, keep scrolling, keep moving. But there comes a moment, a crack in the noise, where silence breaks through. Maybe it's late at night, maybe after an argument, maybe in the morning before the world wakes up. And for a brief moment, you sense it, the stillness, and it terrifies you. Because in that stillness, the roles fade away, the mask slips, and the real you, the one you've buried beneath routines and distractions, starts whispering. And you realize you don't know how to sit with yourself. Not really, not without numbing, not without performing. Silence strips away the performance. It shows you the truth in high definition. It reflects the way you carry your body when no one's looking, the way your heart clenches when you remember a name you haven't said in years, the way you flinch from your own thoughts because they're too loud, too real, too painful. You're not afraid of silence. You're afraid of what the silence reveals, because it reveals just how much of your life is running on autopilot, just how many thoughts aren't yours, just how long it's been since you actually felt alive, unfiltered, uncensored, and unchained from the endless noise of the world. Silence is where the mind returns to its natural rhythm. But we've so long trained ourselves to dance to the tempo of algorithms, trends, deadlines, that we no longer recognize the sound of our own breath, the rhythm of our own hearts, the weight of our own presence. It's no accident that the sages of history, Laozi, Buddha, Christ, Epictetus, sought solitude not in palaces, but in deserts, mountaintops, gardens, prisons. They understood that the soul cannot hear itself unless the world is made quiet. And what they found there was not madness or boredom, but clarity. But in our world today, clarity is dangerous, because once you're clear about who you are, what you value, what truly matters, you become less dependent on everything they're trying to sell you. You stop chasing things that don't nourish you. You stop scrolling for a hit of dopamine and start searching for the truth. And truth for those in power is always a threat. Noise has become a form of control, a system, a currency. Entire industries exist to keep you distracted. Politicians, tech companies, influencers, even the news, they all thrive on one thing: your attention. And they do not care what they have to flood your mind with to keep it: fear, drama, gossip, artificial urgency. It doesn't matter. As long as you're watching, they're winning. But the moment you go silent, you start to see through it all. The veil lifts. The spell breaks. You notice how empty most conversations are, how shallow most ambitions feel, how many of your desires were handed to you by someone else. The silence doesn't just make you see the world differently, it makes you dangerous, because a person who is not addicted to noise cannot be manipulated by it. That is why the world fears the silent. That is why monks are still considered radical, why deep thinkers have always been seen as threatening, because they cannot be bought with trivialities. They are not guided by the shifting winds of culture, but by an inner compass forged in the fire of stillness. And here's the paradox. The more you immerse yourself in silence, the more you begin to hear, not less, but more. Not the world's noise, but its meaning. You begin to hear the subtle wisdom in a quiet room. You begin to sense the power in your own stillness. You begin to remember what it means to be a human being, not a product, not a brand, not a consumer, but a soul alive and aware in the brief miracle of this moment. But here's the tragedy. Most people never make it past that initial discomfort. They touch silence and recoil, like a hand on a hot stove. They misinterpret the pain of detox as proof that something is wrong. But it isn't wrong. It's withdrawal. Withdrawal from chaos, from ego, from a life lived entirely on the surface. It's the pain of the noise leaving your system. And like all withdrawals, it hurts before it heals. You think silence is boring, but boredom is just the first veil. Behind it lies memory, then grief, then longing, then clarity, then peace. But you must pass through them, one by one. You must let them rise and crest like waves. You must feel the loneliness you've avoided for years, the fear you've masked with confidence, the guilt you've buried under productivity. This is not regression, it's reckoning. And yet, that reckoning is sacred, because it is the first time in your life that you are not numbing, not running, not pretending. You are simply being. And in that being, a strange thing happens. You begin to rebuild from the inside. Slowly, imperceptibly, the thoughts get quieter. The heart softens. The breathing deepens. And then suddenly you realize you've met someone you haven't seen in years. Yourself. This is why the ancients practiced stillness, not to escape the world, but to re-enter it more alive. The samurai meditated before battle. Marcus Aurelius wrote meditations in tents between wars. Napoleon, in his most focused moments, took long walks in silence to collect his mind before making decisions that would shape history. They understood that silence is not withdrawal, it is preparation. It is where the inner war is fought so that the outer world can be faced with clarity and courage. When you reclaim silence, you begin to move differently. Speak less, but with more weight. Listen more, but with more presence. You start choosing your inputs with care, like a man choosing his diet after surviving poison. You start noticing how quickly people rush to fill the void, how few can simply be. You start understanding that stillness is not weakness. It is composure, it is sovereignty. And here's something even more profound. Silence doesn't just change how you experience the world, it changes how the world experiences you. Because in your quiet, Others feel their own noise. In your stillness, others sense their own restlessness. And in your presence, without a single word, you invite them to lower their voice, to slow their pace, to meet themselves again. That is power, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that transforms. But make no mistake, it is not easy. Silence will ask more of you than any noise ever could. It will confront you with truths you've buried under decades of motion. It will ask you to sit with your pain instead of fixing it, to feel your shame without justifying it, to accept your desires without chasing them. It will not shout, it will not plead. It will simply wait until you are quiet enough to hear. The journey into silence is not a one-time decision. It is a discipline, a return, a practice. You will forget, you will resist, you will relapse into noise. But the silence is patient. It never punishes. It just waits, like a forgotten friend sitting on your doorstep, waiting for you to come home. And when you do, when you finally surrender to the stillness, you realize it was never empty at all. It was full of the very thing you've been searching for in every screen, every song, every conversation. Presence, not pleasure, not entertainment, not validation, just presence. And in that presence, something ancient awakens, something wordless, something vast. Call it peace, call it God, call it clarity. It doesn't matter. You'll know it when you feel it, and you'll wonder how you ever lived without it.